All right, let's see if I can do this intro without entirely screwing it up. What do we say? How does the intro go? Welcome
to another podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Pixelated Porch Podcast. You are joined by your friendly nerds, Ricky, Chris, and Mike. This week on the porch, we're going to be discussing technology. I actually have not told the fellas what we're talking about because I wanted to spring it as a surprise on them.
Woo!
Before we hop into my mystery topic, I want to find out what the fellas have been up to this week. Ricky, let's start with you, sir. What has been going on?
Honestly, as far as new media consumption is concerned, I haven't really watched a whole lot of things. I watched, now that I think about it, I did watch two movies, one of which was good, the other not so much. But I watched Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, which is the sequel to Jurassic World, which came out, I believe, in like 2015, something like that, which takes place itself like a long time after the original Jurassic Park movies. The whole premise behind Jurassic Park: Fallen Kingdom is there is another mishap at one. Oh my god! Sorry,
so unprofessional.
Somebody texted me, Chris. By the way, your video is lagging about 3-ish seconds behind what you said.
You're welcome, everybody.
I don't know who that was, but weird.
Oh, weird.
But yeah, so Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom. It was like a B tier, C tier sci-fi dinosaur movie. It's one of those like turn your brain off and just look at the dinosaurs kind of movie. They're messing around with dino DNA.
Wait,
and things go wrong. Typical Jurassic Park movie.
You watched the first Jurassic Park movie?
No, this is the newest one actually. Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom.
Isn't
which is the sequel to Jurassic World?
Isn't that what they do in the first movie though, where they mess with dinosaur DNA and it all goes wrong?
Pretty much. So this one is pretty much like Lost World, like the sequel to the original Jurassic Park. Basically, what happens here is there's a mishap at the park in the movie prior. And, the dinosaurs are basically roaming free over this island. But now there is a giant volcano on the island that is erupting. So it's kind of a moral debate as to whether or not we should just let the dinosaurs die off since they're not really supposed to be here to begin with. Or are they, sort of like animals where they deserve to be rescued and preserved. So that's pretty much the morality sake of it, and that's in the movie for about 15 minutes, and then it just goes off the rails from there. Just dumb action with dinosaurs is if that's what you're looking for, I think you'll like this movie. But,
think about the dinosaurs.
Every Jurassic Park movie ever.
Yeah.
So they're pretty. My take on it was that they're just pretty much just milking the T-Rex skeleton logo for whatever money it's worth these days. Kind of like how they're doing with like Terminator and Aliens and Predator. It's kind of along that same line where they just got it on, basically just got it hooked up to a breathalyzer. Or not a breathalyzer. What is it? I'm going to need you to breathe here, Mr. Dinosaur.
So interestingly enough, you were just talking about that. My wife is sitting behind me. She's actually renting Jurassic World as
no,
oh, really?
Don't do
the
it.
First one?
Nice. It's a trap.
Perfect timing.
What are the odds, right?
So so that movie's I watched it, but then I actually watched another movie called Dallas Buyers Club, which I've always heard like good things about this movie. This one's more along the lines of a drama. It actually stars Matthew McConaughey and Jared Leto. And pretty much what it is, it's about this guy. It takes place in like mid to late 80s / early 90s, and it's about this guy who is pretty much your typical like drunk trailer trash cowboy, very polyamorous, and come to find out that he has contracted AIDS, and it's basically him like coming to terms with what that means for his mortality and what he can do with the rest of his life, and basically the battle against the hospitals as a business that you typically see here in the U.S. Very good movie. Like I said, I didn't really know anything about it going into it, other than it's actually on Netflix, and you know how like if you like hover over it, like they'll play that like 30 seconds to like a minute like clip of the movie. So that coupled with the recommendations that I've gotten over the year, I was like, you know what, let's go ahead and check this out, and it was good. I actually really liked it. I never really knew too much about the whole AIDS epidemic that took place, so that was a really cool look into it. It's almost like a biopic. It's based on a true story. I don't know how accurate everything is, but it was a really good story. I enjoyed it. A little bit of a tearjerker, but it was really good. I tend to like sadder, like real movies like that. That's stuff I tend to gravitate towards. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it as far as like media consumption for myself. Mr. Mike, what about yourself, sir?
Well, this whole entire week, not much, honestly. I spent some time up in Tennessee this past week for work, and then Battlefield 4 a lot. I've been really trying to push that 140 rank, slowly getting there, just for shits and grins. And yeah, I mean, just putting around in the garage. We did watch. My wife had not seen Wonder Woman, the one that came out, 2017 or 2018? So we watched Wonder Woman last night because I really wanted to watch Wonder Woman 1984.
I've heard great things.
And so we just finished that this evening, probably like not 15, 20 minutes ago. So a very good movie. I am not going to spoil it, but my wife cried. So
really? At 1984?
Yeah, she cried during Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 1984. So
interesting. Okay.
You know, I mean,
because it was so bad, or because she like was moved by the story.
She was moved by the story and the story of love. So,
oh God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So.
No, I'm kind of shocked to hear you say that, because like literally all I've seen over the internet is people just trashing how bad that the 1984 movie is.
I would say the first Wonder Woman was better, but Wonder Woman 1984, I mean, I still think it was good. I mean, you didn't really have, really big fight scenes like you do in in the first Wonder Woman. Like you had Eris, the God of War, in the first one, and that big giant clash that they have at the end of the movie. And all the fight scenes. In this one, there were fight scenes, but they weren't as good as the first Wonder Woman. So I mean, I'd give it probably like an 8 out of 10. But I wouldn't say it's like, oh my goodness, you have to go see it. But if you definitely like Wonder Woman, I would say yeah, shoot, go for it. So I mean, it still has a good story to it. It's just the big giant boss battles aren't what you would have hoped they would have been. At least for me, I was hoping for more fighting and more. It was more just. I'm not going to spoil it because it just came out, and I think it's only streaming to like the 24th or 28th on HBO Max. So I'm not sure if you can get it anywhere else right now. So I don't want to spoil it since it's like right out there, and I'm sure, people have had other things to do than watch it. So I don't want to spoil it, but it's just it was a good movie.
Yeah.
It just wasn't like the greatest, but it wasn't the worst either.
Yeah, I was debating watching this movie. I personally was not a huge fan of the first one, and I know a lot of people rant and rave about how much they loved the first Wonder Woman movie with Gal Gadot.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's just DC for me specifically. Yeah. It's really hard for me to get into those characters.
Yeah, I've just never been
excluding
a big fan.
Batman.
Yeah, Batman. Yeah. I mean, I can kind of vibe with Superman a little bit, but that's it. Everything else in the DC universe. My wife is a big DC side of things. I like Marvel. I've always been a big Iron Man person. I like Iron Man just because I sit there and be like, I could create that if I really wanted to. Right. It's not going to look like Iron Man, but an armor suit, yeah, shoot, hell yeah, let's create it. But and I like Thor and Loki and that whole realm too. I I'm gonna butcher it. The time magician guy.
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange, yeah.
If we want to use our real names.
So I like him too. So when I watch DC, it's just very dark when you watch it. And I get it, Gotham, blah, 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 especially when I watch the Batman. But it's just, all their movies just seem to me very, very dark. And so when I watch it, like, it's not like the movie's depressing, like, the filmography, whatever, the way they film it.
Physically dark.
It is dark.
I cannot see what's happening here.
Yeah, and so I'm not a big fan. So that's what I did this week. Chris, what about you?
Man, oh man, let me tell you what I've been doing. It's nothing.
A whole lot of nothing.
Didn't see that
Nothing's
coming.
what I've been doing.
Oh boy,
but
boy.
But it sounded interesting. It hooked you right there. So, not a whole lot media-wise. I finished Ghost in the Shell. We talked about that last week. I finished season 2 or gig 2 or whatever they call it. I finished that. Went on Amazon and bought season 1. Which is, of course, Ghost in the Shell standalone complex. Ricky, you might like Ghost in the Shell standalone complex.
So, yeah, I actually really like the idea of that universe. I've actually watched the movie, the live action one with Scarlett Johansson. That was actually my first foray into the Ghost in the Shell world. And then I actually watched I think it's called like 1.0 or 2.0, where it's pretty much like that movie, but in anime, like I guess the original movie.
Yeah.
I actually watched that one in English, and I enjoyed it for the most part. Like just the from an animation standpoint, and the really like really like even the name of the show itself, like Ghost in the Shell, is really like the brain or like the consciousness of a person is the ghost, and then the shell is your body. So it's like, what's the difference between that versus AI? Like, what is the difference, or is there even one? So yeah, that I really like that idea.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept.
In season 2, they talked about it a little bit. In season 1, they really drive that point. Even like the little side, like every anime has the goofy characters, right? Even the goofy characters, which are the Tachikoma robots in this series, like they even go through that crisis of what really separates us from. I mean, there's cyborgs, which is basically a human body that has some, if not all, parts cybernized. Then you have androids, which were never human; they're 100% robots. And then you have robots like the Tachikomas, which are like these like battle mech tank things. They're saying, what's the dividing difference? How are we different? And they start to become self-aware AI and develop personalities and stuff, and it's like explaining how that happens, which is really interesting. And it's like the people in the anime, they're kind of like Homeland Defense for America. So they handle national security. So they deal with really interesting cases, and a lot of them kind of push those boundaries of, wait a minute, is this illegal? Is this not illegal? Is this a person? Is this not a person? Like, where's the line? I think that's really cool. And there's even stuff that like they're talking about diseases that exist because of cybernization. I forget what it is. It's like a disease where if you get a what's called a cyber brain, basically they encase your brain inside of a computer that talks to other cybernetic parts, and you can actually suffer a disease where it basically shuts down your brain and all your organs and stuff like that. They're talking about the cure for that. And then there was an episode where they talk about somebody developed a vaccine, but they didn't want to push that through in Congress because micro machines were on their way in, and they wanted to step away from the old idea of vaccines and go towards micro machines. So it's like, it's not an anime that you can watch and just like turn off your brain and be like, that's cool, that's funny. Like, you actually have to pay attention and listen to what they're saying, otherwise you get lost, which I think is cool because it's like a challenging show to watch, and it kind of forces you to form your own opinions about these things.
Which one is this? Because I started watching one of them, but it was more like 3D animation as opposed to like traditional anime. Because I know there's a couple of different Ghost in the Shell shows, right?
Yeah, there's a couple different ones. It started out with a movie, which I think came out like either way early 90s or late 80s. Ghost in the Shell standalone complex is the anime series. And then they have a gig 2, which is basically like season 2 to that.
Yeah.
The first one's good, and I just purchased it on Amazon Prime, so if you still have my login, you could go watch it. If you still have my login.
I do not. It logged out, but I didn't have the courage to ask you for it. Hey, what was your login again?
Can I get your password? I'll say it here on the podcast in case anybody's interested.
Sure. Yeah. That's
No, it's a good anime. I mean, and the big point. So like they dive off the main topic every now and then. They keep going back to it though. Is this guy called the Laughing Man? And he's this criminal who can commit crime, but he can hack in real time, like in real life. So like the first big thing that he shows up on, he's in a city square, and he's in the middle of a bunch of people. He hacks all their brains and all their eyes to cover up his face with his logo. And the news station that's broadcasting this live that he's doing this in front of also has his logo on his face, and he's doing all this in real time. So he's some genius hacker. Which is really cool. You know, how can he do that? And then there's another part where, no spoilers, but he's talking to one of the guys in Section 9, this group that we're following, and he hacks his eyes in real time to make it look like he's not there at all. Like, he's talking to him 1 second, and then he just completely disappears, and he just walks off, and the guy can't see him at all because he hacked his brain, which is really neat.
And this is why you should not enhance your body with cybernetics.
You sound just like my wife, man. The whole time we're sitting there, I'm like, dude, look, he's got a gun in his arm. And then, like, somebody gets hacked, and she's like, see, this is why you don't do it. I'm like,
So that actually sounds kind of like the movie. The movie had a pretty similar premise to that as well, did it not? That there was like some mastermind hacker.
I've never seen the movie. My wife Inya, she has. She's seen the movie and she was drawing similarities. I've only ever seen the anime. I don't know if I want to watch a live action movie of.
No. I'm talking about the anime. Well, I guess the anime version and the live action. They're kind of the same movie. Just the one with Scarlett Johansson kind of takes its own liberties and mixes things up. But overall, it's pretty much the same movie. But that
sure.
does sound similar. Like a mastermind hacker that's doing that.
Yeah.
But when I'm just listening to you talk about this, and I can't help but think of Cyberpunk 2077, and I'm kind of almost amazed that we have not actually brought that game on the podcast yet. Are you familiar with that at all? Are you looking at Cyberpunk?
I was following it. I was following it quite a bit earlier in the year, and I kind of lost interest, and then it re-piqued my interest to the point where I even got the playlist on Spotify. And then, like, it came out, and, like, people were uploading their gameplay, and I was like, ugh.
Yeah, maybe not a day one purchase, especially on the PS4.
Right. Yeah, it's looking like garbage, man.
Yeah, definitely, like, last-gen consoles, it is
But
bad.
I mean, I haven't
2-gen console.
I haven't played it, but it sounds like all the bitching and complaining out for when like Fallout came out, and like one of my favorites that came out that everybody trashed on was Anthem.
Oh yeah, I immediately, as soon as they showed the gameplay, I was like, nope, I'm out. This is just another Destiny and Division.
And it's
like,
so much better than that, but I love I do love Destiny, but Anthem, I absolutely love that. Played it so much, and then people just shit on it, and now the servers are dead because it's it's an online game. So when you have mass quits, now you can't really find a game to play with anybody else.
Yeah, see, I don't think it's like Anthem is not really so much like a technicality issue. It's just I think people were.
Do you mean Cyberpunk?
No, I mean Anthem. I don't think it was like a technical issue with the game. I think just kind of people, like, I feel like me personally, I feel like a lot of people like picked up on like this is a very familiar formula for a video game, almost like with a lot of Ubisoft games. Like it's kind of a meme now where like you always go up to towers and you unlock different areas. Like I don't know. I feel like people felt like they've played that game already. Just it's got a different like coat of paint on it this time around with Anthem. Yeah. But with Cyberpunk especially, it is just an underbaked and unfinished game. I don't know if you've ever like looked up any of the gameplay on it, but it is, like Chris said, it is actually laughable how terrible this game runs.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of bad things.
The character models don't even load in their details. Like we're talking just like a stick figure, and then like you stand there for a few minutes, and then finally the details load in. I mean, that has nothing to do with gameplay, story writing, or anything. It's just they released it too early.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
And that,
we've heard about that before.
yeah, so I definitely an unfinished game. But okay, so do you think like once they get it like up and polished and up and running, do you think that's something you're gonna get, or you think the ship has sailed?
Once I get my next gen console, I will.
Yeah.
I wouldn't try to play it on the P. I don't see a reason to play that kind of game on a PS4. You know?
Yeah.
Like you're not going to get the same experience. They designed it for next gen consoles.
Yeah,
so.
that's definitely one of the games like for sure you would like. That's the reason you would buy a next gen console, is specifically to play Cyberpunk.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's kind of a good segue into what I have to ask you guys about. So we're talking about the future, cyber brains, cybernetics. We've talked about cybernetics before, and that was actually one of my topics I was really interested in. So I kind of had this thought a few weeks ago. Of course, I work with technology daily. And I started asking myself this question. I want to pass the same question on to you guys. If there was one device that you would say is irreplaceable in your life, what would it be? And second part to that question, the kicker, what device do you think makes the world a worse place? Makes things worse. For better or worse, I guess. It could be something like what I mean. I'll give you an example of what mine are. I'll go first. So
thank you.
The device.
That's a tough. That's. I mean, it's a good question to ask, but that's super tough. I mean, like, there's so much around, and
yes,
I know
you have a 6-page book report due. Now.
Exactly right. Way to go.
So for me, the device that absolutely like influences my life, changes basically something I could not live without, or wouldn't prefer to live without. I guess you could live without everything if you want to live naked in the woods, but. Device that I couldn't live without would be just a computer, I guess, with the ability to do research, watch things, because most things are through streaming now, right? So I can watch documentaries and stuff like that. You can play games on them. So mine is, of course, the Mac Mini that I'm borrowing from Michael, because that's where we do the podcast. That's where I do all the editing. That's where I work when I'm at home. So that is a pretty important device for me. There's a whole lot of layers to that, which we'll go into in a second, just giving you an example. The device that I feel makes things worse. So if a device that I could erase from history and hope that today would be a better day than it was, before this device exists, would be the invention of the smartphone. Personally, I don't like the smartphone. I have one. But I feel like the smartphone gives human beings instant grasp to technology, to streaming, and I feel like that influences our opinions a lot. You have a thought about something, you want to learn something, you go and look up somebody else's opinion, and that can often form your own opinion. Not to mention the instant retrieval of information. So if there's something going on around me, I can post that onto a social media site, and then everyone will see it. I think that kind of removes some of the wonder from the world. I could go watch a video on what Baja looks like, so why do I need to go there myself? Yeah. And then, of course, there's the safety aspect, in my opinion. People drive with their cell phones all the time. It kills people. I mean, that's right up there with drunk driving. So if I could remove one device from history, from being invented ever, it would be the smartphone. Go back to Nokia's flip phones, phone calls, text messages. That's it. You use your computer for home use. Does that make more sense?
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of like a double-edged sword, honestly. Like it's such a powerful tool. And it I feel like it has its ups and its downs. Like it can be used for good, but it can also be used for, I don't know. It can be used like with any tool. It can be used for like creation or destruction, I suppose.
Yeah. And I'd be a liar if I said I don't have my smartphone in my hand like all day. I have to have it for work. But sometimes if I could just put it in a galvanized box and ignore its existence, I would. Love.
Oh yeah, it is very nice to just put the smartphone down. Which I mean, really, we call it a phone, but it's really just a mobile computer.
It's an extension of ourselves
that just so happens to have the capability of a phone. It's everything. It's our GPS, it's our email, it's our text messaging, it's our communication method. It's everything. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard to imagine going back to life, like going back to the 90s and not, I guess living like it's the 90s now and not actually having a smartphone is, it's a really tough thing to imagine.
Maybe it's just nostalgia speaking. Like before we all had smartphones. Like I don't know. It just seemed like things had a little bit more wonder to them.
Yeah, they definitely did. And Chris, when you asked that question, exactly what you listed was exactly what I had thought of. You know, if there was a device that I couldn't, you know, that I want to keep, it would be definitely a computer. Now, if I had a nitpick and whether I want to keep my custom built PC or I'd want to keep the iMac that I spent a fortune on, you know, if I had to choose one, then I don't know. But yeah, no, I definitely had the same mentality that you do, you know, when you were talking about that, was because, yeah, you have a computer, you can watch your, you know, Netflix, your, you know, TV shows, you can get your information from whatever you want and use it just as a computer. But then the other thought was, yet again, you know, like, yeah, I would want to get rid of a cell phone or a smartphone and go back to how things were.
So does that mean that you kind of agree with what I said about smartphone?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, 100%. I'd rather go back, and I told myself, if Apple ever went under, because I'm not going to switch from iPhone to Android. I just can't do it. You know, it's not because I love Apple so much and I got a boner for everything Apple puts out. But I would rather just, if I had to get rid of my, you know, Apple phone, I have a flip phone in my, like I have like I have like two burner phones. I have like a brick phone, like and I have a flip and a flip phone that I have stored somewhere in my electronic boxes. And I'm like, well, if I ever lose my Apple phone, or, you know, if they go under and I have to choose that or Android, I'm like, I'm going back to a flip phone. Yeah. I don't give a shit. You know.
Like, I actually did have to go. I actually did have to go back to using a flip phone a few years back because I was on vacation and something or another happened. But I got my phone got soaked and I had to basically get it shipped off and to get a replacement. So in the meantime, I just activated an old flip phone I had, and I gotta tell you, it was actually super nice for the 2 weeks that I did not actually have my phone, and to just be on just the primitive, like, caveman technology that was, you know, the flip phone. It was super nice to be quote unquote unplugged for that little bit, because, you know, you don't have that constant temptation of looking to see, like, what's going on with Twitter, or, you know, what's on Facebook,
what's on Instagram, or what's on Snapchat, and looking at your phone constantly.
Let me listen to Spotify. Like, I mean, it is nice to have all that stuff at your fingertips, but it is also nice to just kind of enjoy life in the present. And I'll be honest, Chris, I completely forgot what your first question was. I know we're sitting here talking about technology now, but what was your first question?
What one device? And I might change this question here in a second once I get your answer, Ricky. I might find that a little bit. But, like, what one device is something that you would choose not, if you had to get rid of everything else? What one device would you keep? And if you pick, like, a game system, you get to keep your TV too, obviously.
Man, so
this isn't the goddamn Twilight Zone.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the computer. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of the same thing as a phone, but when you were talking about, like, how everybody has, like, cameras and everything with them at all times, and how that kind of takes the wonder out of, like, I guess, recording video and things like that. Like, I definitely agree with that. Because I find myself, like, I don't really find myself taking a lot of videos these days. I don't find myself, like, taking a lot of photos, things like that. Whereas before the smartphone, like, I remember I had, like, one of those, like, giant, like, shoulder mounted, like, bazooka looking, like, VHS recorders that my dad had. Mm-hmm. Like, you would actually take, like, a legit, like, straight VHS cassette and stick it straight into this thing, and it would record straight onto it. And I remember I was fascinated by the idea of, like, how in the hell are we able to, like, actually, like, capture and record reality in this little contraption? Like, how the hell does that work?
The answer,
reality is a lie. Now it's a fake.
The answer,
it's all fake,
is magnets.
Oh, so that's how those work. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess I would probably keep my computer. I mean, because, I mean, it's my access to everything, assuming that the internet still exists in this alternate reality that we're dreaming up here.
It does. So for you, computer, what would be the one device you would choose to get rid of? Are you also on board with smartphone, or are you saying something else?
You know, as much as I enjoy it, I think I could live without it, honestly. So Yeah, I mean, from stuff that I use every day that I would have to get rid of, that would definitely be the one I would get rid of. If I used an iPad, I would say that, because I honestly have no use for an iPad personally, because I could do everything I can on an iPad on my phone. So, but yeah, if from everyday use, I would probably say that, because the other thing that comes to mind is air conditioning, or like HVAC.
Ugh.
And life without that technology would be ass. So,
Oh, yeah. I mean, I lived in England for 3 years, and most of the houses normally don't have AC. You have to have like either a window unit or fans. And, you know, it doesn't get all that hot in England, but once you get acclimated, 80 degrees, or, you know, those days that it hits like 90, 95, oh my goodness, it is so hot without moving recirculating air, if not cold air, in the house.
Yeah.
Like, you were baking. Like, and I had like a computer room that was the size of a closet. So like it was even smaller. It was probably like half the size of what my den is now. And I could my desk was built for the width of the room, and my desk is 70 inches wide. That was the width of my room, and it was probably like 70 inches by maybe like 100. So you didn't really have much. You couldn't have my door open or open the door with me in my chair. And when that room got hot because of the computers, there was no way to cool that room down. Not having AC in England and having a computer room the size of a closet was rough.
Yeah, I'm super thankful. You know, living here in the Southeast, you know, we get hurricanes that hit here like every year pretty much. And this year when, Chris, we went up to Savannah for your wedding, of course, a hurricane hit us like the day before, and our power was out for that entire weekend. It was like 4 days, almost 5 days. We did not have any AC here. So I'm super thankful that we were out of town, because that would have been miserable being here well, I guess actually electricity is a pretty cool technology that I wouldn't want to live without either. So
It's pretty nifty.
so long answer short, I would get rid of my phone, especially after listening to what you guys had to say. I was like, I can live.
I guess that's
without.
not too surprising. We are fairly like-minded. For anybody who's listening, if you are listening, you have a different opinion than us or the same opinion as us, go check out our social media. Let us know what your opinions on that are before I change the topic, which I'm going to kind of tweak it a little bit here. So go tell us what your opinions are on those things. So let's narrow it down a little bit, since we all are on the same page of the devices we would keep versus the device that we would get rid of. So we all said the computer. Let's narrow it down a little bit more. If you could, would you keep your desktop computer with all of its current functionality, but you can only use it when you're sitting at your desk? Or would you take a device that only has limited capability, no internet access, no gaming, no streaming, unless you're sitting at a desk, for a mobile platform like a laptop?
I keep my desktop.
Keep your desktop?
That like defeats the entire purpose of a mobile device. So yeah, absolutely, I would keep the desktop.
The reason I asked that specific question is because we talked about the 90s. Do you know what laptops were capable of doing only a few years ago? Well, I guess it was, 30 years ago? Dear God, I'm old. 30 years ago, a laptop was not able to do any of those things. You could open it up, you could do word processing, you could check your email if you were sitting somewhere that had a connection, because it wasn't really Wi-Fi back then, right? Mm-hmm. So if you could keep
DSL.
So you can only keep your computer if you're sitting at your desktop. That's another interesting point, because I want to go back to the world being more full of wonder and interesting. If you can only use your computer at your desktop, do you choose to go outside and experience life, or do you choose to sit at your desk all day and do nothing except for look at pictures online?
Well, if you're talking about having DSL internet, shoot, I'm going to be outside. What game are you going to play on DSL internet? I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Like, that's not going to happen.
Minecraft?
Like, you want to go check your
online
Facebook?
games.
Jeez. Like, oh, man. Like, you couldn't even play Minecraft on DSL internet.
So desktop it is. We get to go outside. We get to experience life. That makes us better humans, at least in my opinion. That makes us better humans if we actually go experience things and don't rely on the computers to let us experience things.
I mean, in all reality, you know, and what sucks about the technology that we have, it is, you know, like Ricky was saying, it is very much of a double-sided sword. I mean, you get so much information. There's cool apps and games out there. There's cool features to our phones. But then also, what do we do? You know, we wake up, we grab our phone, we go take a shit, we go play on Facebook for a second while we're taking a dump, and then we go get our breakfast, and we're still playing on Facebook, or maybe we're done with Facebook and we check out Instagram, and then we go to work. We get to work and we're like, oh, coffee break. Oh, I'm gonna go play on Instagram or Snapchat for a second, and then you go sit at a computer for work. So I mean, like, we spend so much time on our devices and we forget the outside life. I mean, this fantasy topic that we're talking about, I would love it so much. I mean, even when I was rocking the iPhone 6, I would even go back because the SIM cards, I believe, are compatible, or I mean, I have the adapters, but every once in a while, I'll get like a wild hair at my ass, and I'm like, I'm going to go back to my iPhone 4.
What?
Because I've got pretty much all my...
What the hell does that mean? A wild hair up my ass.
Yeah, it's like it's a phrase I learned when I was younger.
Like,
and
is it hair like a rabbit or hair like a follicle?
I you know what? I've never really asked that question. I never really.
Those are two very different things, Michael.
Yeah, well, let's just go with a follicle because I don't want
a whole live animal up your rectum.
I don't want that, and I don't want people to think that I do that. So
goodness.
But anyway. Yeah, you know, like I'll just pop my SIM card out and rock the old phone and be like, oh man, it doesn't get Facebook. It doesn't, you know, like all the apps aren't compatible anymore. So like you can't update the latest app or the latest software. So you're pretty much just stuck with whatever you had and, you know, the 2000s on it. It's kind of the smartphone. Touchscreen doesn't respond as well. You can swear at it more. But, you know, I'm just like, yeah, and I'll just revert back to the iPhone 4 and you know, be a little happy. And you know, this idea and the concept, I've always been all about it because you're absolutely right. We miss so much of the outside. We miss so much of, you know, talking to our neighbors. I mean, think about the current political scene that we're in right now without going into too much detail, but you know, we get so focused on being a keyboard warrior, if that's your style, or being sucked into Facebook or social media, and you fight with other people. But you ever think about talking to your neighbor? You know, you think everybody's like racist or horrible or pieces of shit and everybody's like the scum of the earth, but is your neighbor treating you like shit? You know, in most cases, no. I mean, I've got very nice neighbors, you know, so, you know, I can go talk to my neighbors and realize how, you know, wonderful the world is and how nice they are. But we don't do that anymore because we're so focused on socializing on our phone and through virtual means that we forget to go, you know, talk to our fellow friends in person. And I know we can't really do that right now because of COVID, but whatever. But, you know, we miss that, you know, besides all the crap that's going on. We don't do that anymore, you know.
That is something interesting I noticed a few years ago. Again, I work with technology and helping people with their technology. And I've noticed that anytime there's an awkward silence or you're around somebody, so think of like an elevator, what's the first thing you do to get out of that situation? You whip out your smartphone.
You go to your phone.
It is hilarious because what people will do is they'll pull out their phone, they'll flip between the pages, they'll go to the email, they'll refresh it, they'll go to their social media, they'll refresh it. They're not really doing anything. They're just doing something.
Yep, they have. You know, we have to be busy. We have to be doing something, and we're looking for that excitement or that dopamine. Yeah, dopamine hit. You know, because we've been so excuse me, we've been so trained to do that with Facebook.
Michael's got COVID.
I know, right? We're so trained to do that with Facebook. We're so trained, like, oh, Instagram, I've got like 30,000 likes, or I got 15 or 1,000, or you know, I've got 100 likes or something like that. And we get so excited, or so and so, you know, sent me something on Snapchat. I have to look at it. Oh my goodness, it's so amazing. They wanted to talk to me, and we want that hit so much that we're dependent on it. So when there's not that hit, our brain's like, we need that. I need that. I you know. And so when there's a period of awkwardness going on, that's what you've been doing for so long that you've basically become addicted to it. And so you have to go and like, this is awkward. I can't handle this. I need like a hit right now. And so
I find that actually honestly really depressing. The like the dopamine and like I guess the adrenaline kind of rush that you get addicted to. And I guess really more specifically for me, it's the numbers. Like everything these days is really just all about like your numbers. Like how many followers do you have? Like how many likes did you get on this comment, or how many likes did you get on this video or whatever? How many subscribers do you have? And that for me really, because I used to be really big into YouTube, and you know, of course you guys know I'm a really big Halo fan. I grew up really, as I mentioned earlier, like fascinated with like video and like being able to like capture like a moment in time and be able to go back and rewatch that. So, it just kind of made sense when YouTube was up and coming. I was like, well, I love videos. I love Halo. Why don't I do both of those things and make Halo YouTube videos?
Yeah.
And I did that for a number of years and I loved it. But then, I don't know. It was just, I found myself really obsessing over the numbers. Like, well, I put this amount of hours into this video, but I only got, X amount of views. Meanwhile, this person is getting thousands of or hundreds of views or, whatever the case might be. And that really over the course of time really, I don't know, just kind of sucked all the fun out of it. And I really don't like how that is really what the world has come to. Like it almost seems like you're like people, a lot of people anyways, don't really make videos or things like that just because they love to do it. They just see it as a way to get that dopamine rush, get those likes, get those comments. And, there's a formula that, it's almost cookie cutter, what people do to get that stuff. And I find that really, depressing because I don't know,
It definitely is. And I mean, like, kind of like that too with like Facebook and social media. A few years ago, I cut my cord, so to speak. I turned off all my social media accounts. And the reason I did it wasn't because, I didn't have enough likes or, whatever. I realized one day that it's just a constant stream of negativity.
Yeah.
I read somebody's post and it gets me upset. And I either want to reply to that or I want to pretend like it doesn't exist. And I just keep scrolling and something else makes me upset. I see something in the news I don't like, or I see somebody's opinion that rubs me the wrong way, or like, how can somebody think like that? They're stupid or whatever. And it was just a constant stream of negativity in my life. I cut that off and feel much better. Might seem a little bit naive when it comes to current comings and goings and the events and the news and things like that. And like, sure, but I feel like I'm a happier person because I don't have to constantly look at those sources and get upset with them. I'm not tied to them in a way where I'm dependent upon them. And kind of like you said, Ricky, too, with people playing it as the numbers game, like YouTube, definitely. We've run a couple YouTube channels. We've done a couple other social media things, and I don't want to toot our horn here with the Pixelated Porch, but we're not making this so that way we can get liked. We're making this because this is fun. I like editing. We like talking to each other. And, if you're listening, we just want you to like it too. We're not going to tell you to subscribe or to like it because we want your numbers. We want it because we're interested in what your opinions are. So that is really the true reason for doing all this, which takes me to my last question, fellas.
Bun dun dun.
Yeah. We talked about smartphones. We talked about connection, social media. If there was one style app you could get rid of, social media. This would include Facebook. This would include Twitter. Video posting apps. This would include like YouTube, Vine, TikTok now. Which do you think would potentially make the world a better place?
Getting rid of social
gone?
media. Hands
media?
down, social media. Like,
Okay.
Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, like, gone. Parlor.
Well, I
gone.
probably would
Like,
put Snapchat in the same thing as like YouTube and TikTok.
yeah, but yeah, I mean, social media platforms, I would say hands down, like, make those disappear. I mean,
Why?
I'm only like a week or two away from deleting my Facebook for good. So,
Well, I say why. Let me specify. Why do you think that over video posting apps?
well, I think personally with Snapchat, I'm not a big fan that you're uploading. I mean, there's a lot of things I'm not a fan of. I mean, I hate using WhatsApp, but I have to use it for work every once in a while. I hate using Snapchat. I hate using Instagram. I don't post on Instagram, but at least not so much anymore. But so
I guess I don't mean so much for you personally, just like in a broad.
Well, yeah. So getting rid of social media, I believe that. One, a lot of people have become social, justice warriors and keyboard warriors, and they feel like their opinion has to be heard. And, I was definitely very much raised that it's not about you. I was told that multiple times, and it wasn't a mean thing or a harmful thing, that my parents taught me. It was more for me to get myself to stop thinking about myself and start thinking about others. And so to me, Facebook, especially with Facebook, everybody's, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what we're doing. This is what I think about this, or, screw this political guy or screw that political guy. And if you're on this side of the political spectrum, fuck you. And if you're on this side, fuck you too. And, yada, yada, yada. If you don't agree with me, fuck you, and people have become very belligerent and nasty without actually having to, deal with the consequences. I remember back in high school on Facebook, I called, she's passed away now, but, she was a high school friend of mine named Sky, and I had fought for her, out of being a friend, and her mother, she was like the most evil person whatsoever, right? And I called her a bitch on Facebook. I was like, you need to stop being a bitch. Now, I'm like 16, 17 years old telling this like 40, 45, 50-year-old woman, whatever, or, whatever age we're, like, called her a bitch. Well, her son at that time frame was like, I believe he was into wrestling, and he was on the football team, muscular dude, and, I'm not sure if he had a lot of problems, but, he was one of those kids you just didn't fuck with. Well, he found out, and he basically called me out to the football field, and he came out with his older brother that was just got out of the Army basic, and like 4 other people, and they're crammed in like this little tiny Honda car. Luckily, I got him in a lot of trouble. My youth pastor at the time, because the church was right next to the football field, I was like, hey man, I have to go apologize to this woman, blah, 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 or I'm gonna, basically, I'm a small little like 100-pound white kid. I can't fight for myself. I'm a little twig, and I've got these big giant football players, ready to basically throw down. So I saw the biggest youth pastor that I had there, and, big, and I brought him out, and I was just like, I'm so sorry. They were going to beat my ass over that. Like, literally, they all got out of the car, and I was sitting there just shaking, and she was just screaming in my face. I was like, don't you ever get involved in my family, affairs again, how I raised, blah, blah, and I'm sitting there just, like, petrified. I'm over here thinking I'm doing the right thing by calling you a bitch on Facebook. Be like, well, stop being such a bitch. How's that? Thinking I'm the Mr. Tough Guy. But we forget about that in social media. We don't have to answer to that, because the guy that you're calling a bitch, or, or derogatory term, or saying whatever, could be, all the way in Afghanistan, or could be in California when you're on the West Coast or East Coast, and you don't have to, fly to them and confront them. So, to me, and there's so much disinformation being spread. Disinformation, I think it was like 3 or 6 times more likely to spread faster than real information. And so there's just so much that can be put on these platforms that we get wrong information or inaccurate information on all sides. Personally, I believe if that all went away and we went back to I don't know if you guys remember having to use like those, when you guys were looking up facts, you had like to pull a card out of the library and pull that little card out, and then you had to go find that document somewhere, and then you had like a scan. Dewey
Decimal System.
Something like that. And
Dewey Decimal.
Finding all these facts, and you had to research all this crap for yourself. Well, if it's on the internet, it must be true, right? Wikipedia. We use Wikipedia all the time, right? Wikipedia can be edited by anybody. Most people, like the search engine, when you ask for Siri, like, hey, who was the president of 1984? Because I just did that the other day. What does it pull up? First search thing is Wikipedia. The president of 1984 was Ronald Reagan. Wikipedia
says Chester Cheeto.
Yeah, exactly. So, but when I grew up, when I was growing up in school, Wikipedia was not a credible source. We don't know what credible source is anymore. I've had family members post The Onion saying, "Oh my goodness, this can't be real. Is this really real? This is really happening?" And I'm like, I'm not going to say who it was, but and I was just like, no, it's The Onion. It's satire. It's funny. It's not real. you know. But anyway, so like I'm not a big fan of social media, and I think it's really done a lot of wrong things for a lot of people. And it had good intentions when it started, but it's turned into a big giant clusterfuck. And so I would definitely be all about getting rid of Twitter, because you have the same wars on Twitter, you have the same opinionated people on Twitter, and you just just like you said, Chris, like you get upset and you get angry and you sit there and you want to fight, but I mean, why can't you tell that person in person? If you can't say it to their face or in person,
go fight them in person.
You shouldn't say it. It's not about you. And you don't know what's making them say those things, so you got to put yourself in the other person's shoes, and a lot of people don't do that because they get, emotionally driven to post, against this, like, oh, you're wrong, blah, 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 and they're speaking out of their ass, or speaking out of their feelings, which could be also speaking out of your ass, depending on who you're talking to. So that's why, personally, my long spiel, I hate social media, and I stay away from it as much as possible, and I'm very, very, very close to actually just deleting it, and I don't go much on it anymore, and I'm just like, you know what, I don't need this. Those video posting apps, I mean, I stay away from them anyway. Snapchat's nice because you can snap a picture, but yet again, I sit there and think to myself, well, you have a camera on your phone, you have iMessages, or you have whatever Android uses, and you can send a multimedia message that way. So why not do it that way? Why do I have to use WhatsApp to send you a text message? Or why do I have to use Messenger to send you a text messages? Like, here's my fucking phone number, like, text me. Stop using these third-party apps that are monitoring everything you say and do and keeping all the pictures you sent. You think all your nudes on Snapchat aren't on a server somewhere where they can access them or someone's seen it? A lot of people sent... it's out there.
Hear Ricky ferociously typing.
Some person's just like, oh, I got all these dudes now, like, we all do sketchy shit. You have access to a server, boom, you just got like a million people's nudes are sending back and forth between Snapchat.
Yeah, but specifically making things better. I get what you're saying with social media.
Yeah.
Ricky, what about you?
So it's kind of hard to separate yourself personally from, I guess, the world overall, because I do think that Facebook and Twitter have done a lot of good things for the world. I think it's been a really good way for people to connect with each other, and and to get behind like good causes and I guess drive change. But like I said earlier, it is a tool. And like with any tool, it can be used for good or for bad. So, pretty much what I said, like people who have certain points of view of the world can all rally together and they can do bad in the world using that exact same thing. So, and the same can be said for like YouTube or, I guess TikTok or Snapchat. Same thing is applicable there. However, I do think that with social media in particular, I guess like with Twitter and Facebook and kind of like Mike was talking about, there is a lot more the anonymity and the anonymous factor, and of course you are Animaniac.
Yes, that's correct.
Aminosity? I don't know.
Yeah, and one of those. Subscribe. Little Indian kid meme. Look it up. So yeah, I guess if I had to choose between the two, I would probably say to get rid of Twitter and Facebook as well, because I guess Mike, like yours, I don't know, man, it's tough because they're both really applicable, but I think the barrier of entry is a lot less when it comes to like Twitter and Facebook, whereas with like YouTube specifically, like you have to actually edit or just upload a video itself. So there's a lot more barrier of entry when it comes to that. Like if you wanted to use it for bad, I suppose.
And if you wanted to put like a shitty posting video on YouTube, like if it's like us right now through Discord, they can see your face. And I don't know if you ever watched that one documentary on Netflix. I'm sorry to take your spot, Ricky, but there was this one where like this guy kills a cat, and it ends up being like
don't fuck with cats.
Yeah, don't fuck with cats. and they're like trying to figure out where he was, and they zoom around the room and they find, okay, well, he's got this style of outlet that's only in this part of the world, and they were able to like locate that, that room to Canada. I think it was Canada or something like that, and they're able to do that. So like if you're going to sit there and put a rant on YouTube and not be smart about like trying to hide your location, a lot more people can figure out like, oh, I know where this guy lives. He lives at least in this area. Or I know that building outside of his window, he lives here. He must be on this, like they could find you a lot easier than, hiding behind a fake account on Facebook. If you're using, an IP blocker and setting up a fake account. So, you're actually in the U.S., but it says you just made an account in Russia. You could hide behind that and Facebook.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would get rid of Facebook and Twitter for sure, and I would much rather keep things like Twitch and YouTube around. Because I don't know. I've I don't know. I've tried to, I guess, think of the world overall, but what do you know about the world really other than your personal view? And
Right.
My personal view is I have made some of the best friends I've made in my life through YouTube and Twitch. And again, I know I always go back to Halo, but it's a really big part of my life. I mean, it's pretty much a part of my personality at this point. I've been playing for so long, and that has enabled me to find other people that share that same passion and that same love for Halo, and we can connect on that level. And I've played with people for over a decade now. With people that I've met through YouTube and Twitch, and they're some of the best friends I've had in my life. So yeah, I mean, I would definitely keep YouTube and Twitch for sure, just for the impact that it's had on my life versus
That's
Twitter
interesting.
and Facebook, which
Chris, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, you guys have interesting points, and I agree, and I guess I kind of went into it understanding that side of the argument too. It is, and I said it before, it is a source of a lot of negative personalities coming together and clashing together in this own little like virtual mosh pit. But I have to say, if I could delete one or the other, mine would definitely be YouTube, TikTok, those kind of apps.
really.
And not because of the whole negative aspect. I mean, like Ricky said, tools are tools. You do with them what you do with them. There are lots of grandmas out there who get to see pictures of their grandkids through Facebook.
Yeah.
So I can't say Facebook is inherently entirely evil because of that. Just people use it, dare I say, incorrectly. Although I feel like, especially with apps like TikTok, I feel like the appeal to that is to grab young people. And I really sound like an old man when I say that, but to grab younger people, like we're talking like teenagers. When I was a stupid teenager, I was out skateboarding and doing dumb stuff, and my friends were there. If we had that kind of media, we would have been posting what we were doing that was stupid. Mm-hmm. I feel like that entices people to do more stupid things, and not only is that going to possibly get them either in more trouble, legally, or get them hurt. People do dumb stuff. Do it for the Vine was a big thing. Mm-hmm. And like people got killed because of just the dumb stuff that they would do. For that saying right there, do it for the Vine. Go stand on the interstate and see how long you can stand before you jump out of the way. Like, how stupid.
Or climb the tallest tower in the crane building and end up falling to your death while you're on Facebook Live.
Or like all the different stupid challenges that we've seen,
Yeah.
It's just like all that stuff is purely because of Vine, because of TikTok, because of that. I just feel like it dumbs down the human race dramatically.
Yeah.
Because like Ricky said, it's a numbers game. People see, oh, everybody's doing this, I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to post this, and I'm going to get famous. Or, oh, it's funny to be screaming and raging at a video game and break your keyboard, so I'm going to act like that to see if people will like it and laugh at me. Or we could go even to a more dark place and be like, oh, it's funny when you kick cats, so I'm going to go make a video of me kicking all the cats in the neighborhood. I just feel like it influences people in an extremely negative way. Now, I love YouTube. I YouTube channels and we're on YouTube and stuff like that. So it'd be hard for me to say to get rid of it. But like if I could say one would benefit better, getting people, primarily younger people, off of that kind of media to where they're not being influenced by other people making bad decisions, I think that would at least improve the quality of the younger generations that will one day be taking care of us inside of our retirement homes.
Well, and the other thing was, it's like, I don't remember the statistics exactly in the Social Dilemma, but because of social media platforms, young female suicide rates have skyrocketed because of social media influences.
I guess that's the other thing. The other thing too. You're right. Sorry, Mike. I don't want to jump on top of you, but go back to my rant. You've got a young girl who's going to go on YouTube, and she's got a beautiful voice, and she wants to go sing a cover song. And I guarantee you, somebody in the comment is going to bash her physical appearance.
Yep.
Why is that necessary?
Yep.
Why did you have to do that? Why do you have to make it such a negative thing? It's like, I don't know. I feel like when you put your video out there, you're more likely to have those trolls just rag on you, and I think that's unfair.
Yeah, I think that deters a lot of people as well, from actually expressing themselves, just for the fear of, the backlash or the negative feedback that they'll get from it. So that is, I mean, that is one aspect of it, but that's as easy as turning off comments as well. So
yeah.
Well, and the other thing is, I don't want to take this podcast and talk forever about this topic, but a lot of it comes down to, one, having, like, we were talking about, like I ranted on last episode, was the lack of discipline, and that's not just only in the individual using the platform, but say if your 13-year-old child is using a platform like this, why is your 13-year-old child using Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, Snapchat, all these things that could influence your young child or individual?
It is definitely getting harder to like keep parental blocking. That kind of stuff is a lot harder. It is than it used to be. I mean, my parents didn't want me to play video games. They took the power cord. That's it.
Yep, like, go play outside in the dirt. But and I'm not, anybody whose parents out there, I know there's phenomenal people out there doing their best, but this isn't parenting, bashing or anything like that. But
we don't have kids.
Parenting's a full-time job. And as your parent, our parents will say the same thing. It was a full-time job, and a lot of teenagers and kids that I see in restaurants. Like, if I was in a restaurant and I was throwing a fit, my parents would pay the bill and walk out of the restaurant and sacrifice their dinner to keep my attitude or behavior in check, or take me out to the car and paddle my ass. And usually after the first time, when they were like, "Oh, we're going to the car," I'm like, "Okay, I'm done throwing a fit," because nobody else wanted to listen to the screaming child. Well, now multiple times I've been out to say, like I think Olive Garden was the last one I went out to, this scenario, and there's like a 6-year-old just screaming and throwing a fit, and the parents just like, "Fine, here," and just throw the kid, like literally throw the phone at the kid, and the kid just shuts up when he holds the phone. And then the minute like dad gets a phone call and he's like, "I need my phone back," like the kid starts screaming again in the store, and I'm like, "I'm trying to enjoy my dinner over here and your kid's screaming." Like, take the kid outside. But I understand that people don't want to sacrifice their nice dinner. Like, this might be like the first Friday in like 3 months they've been able to go out and have a nice dinner, and they're just trying to get the kid to shut up. But unfortunately, parenting never ends. So if we're letting kids at a young age be on these devices, it's detrimental to their health, their mental health as well.
Yeah, I mean,
we're seeing that.
I was like that with video games when I was young, but I guess they weren't really portable. I mean, unless we're talking about like Game Boy, there wasn't really any way to bring anything with you, and it was only really limited to just like the game that you had with you as well. But I don't know. I was definitely. I guess you could say addicted to video games when I was a kid, and I was exposed to it pretty young. I was probably like 5-6 years old first time I played video games. So I guess it really ultimately it falls on the parent. With everything, I mean, you got to do everything with moderation. Like if you use it as a babysitting tool, like to shut the kid up, that's the dopamine, like you were talking about, Mike, like the dopamine spikes that you get as an adult, but like to a little child, like of course they're going to get addicted to it.
They don't know what it is.
Training,
they don't know what it is. They don't know how to control it. And when I watched the Social Dilemma, about Facebook, I was sitting there, I'm like learning about the AI and how it's working. I'm like, you know what? I could use that because each time I click on DeWalt Tools, it's going to notice and track that I clicked on DeWalt Tools. So I could probably use this to maybe find a DeWalt tool or another tool that I haven't used before or that I didn't know that was out there. And I could probably use this platform and this AI learning to find what I want. And so if I can limit it down to computers and tools, then great. But the more political ads you click on, the more political ads it's going to show you. The more gay pride, the more gay pride it's going to show you. The more this, the more that, whatever. I mean, and they say it in the video too, that whatever you stop and look at and spend more time on, it's going to show you more of those ads. Well, if you don't have the self-control to stop buying tools, well, you got to, one, get the discipline, but maybe stop clicking on tools, or if, you don't have the self-discipline to stop clicking on political posts, stop, like the more you click on it, the more you're only going to see it. You have to develop that self-discipline even as an adult. But it's taken me, I'm 28, I just realized that I'm like, I could use this for good, and let this AI do the work for me to bring me tools that I might want. And then I can choose whether I want to buy it or not. But 13, 18, no.
Yeah, what you're talking about is almost like that scene in Minority Report whenever basically like it's in the near future, and there's like cameras in the stores, and they will actually like recognize your face or like recognize your eyes, and it'll actually it'll scan your face and it'll recognize like stuff that you've bought there before or things like what your interests are, and it'll recommend things in the store for you to purchase like in real time there for you. Like, oh, hello, Mike. You might be interested in this tool set. Like if you were going to Home Depot or something and it did that, which is kind of weird, but yeah,
it's cool.
Yeah.
If you have the discipline to be able to say, no, I don't need that tool set. But if you're 15 years old and you have a credit card, you're like, oh, cool. And you don't think about it. And then you're like, swipe, mom's got a card. Don't give a shit.
Which goes back to the whole, I guess, tool analogy. I always kind of think of, it's like fire, like fire can of course be used for good. You can warm yourself up. You can, light up, what you're trying to see, or you could burn down a town, or the entire coast of California.
You were exactly right, because actually I was talking to my wife about this, and it's funny that you bring up fire because in Avatar and the animated series, Aang, he finally learns how to firebend. He goes sees that master firebender, and he's just like focus on this burning on the leaf, and he sits there, and then he gets a fireball, and then he gets that fireball and starts whipping it around, and he lets it get out of control, and then he ends up burning Katara. But it's the same thing. Like you can control that fire on that leaf and watch it in your hands, but if you let it get out of control or you don't know how to control it, something so great and powerful that could be used for good can turn into, like what Aang did, hurt everybody around him. He started a fire in the forest and burned Katara.
Yeah. Yeah, and
so your analogy is spot on.
Talking about that too, like when you were mentioning like it suggesting things to you based on because I watched The Social Dilemma as well, and I definitely recommend it, Chris, if you haven't seen it, or just to the general listening audience as well. It's definitely a very worthwhile watch, especially with things that have happened even just this past week. Because you had mentioned like it notices how long you like stop and look at something, or of course if you click on something. But one of the things, of course, is like you mentioned, like political things, and eventually what starts to happen is based off of your own individual interests. Like it starts to feed you things that you like more and more, and what that does is it really kind of silos everyone off into their own individual realities, so to speak, because all that you really see on because it's not everybody has the same Facebook. It's all, like you said, Mike, it's based off of what your own personal interests are, and those feedback loops of it spitting that stuff right back at you. So the ads that I see on my Facebook are probably completely different from what Chris is, from what Mike's are. So that's why people, a lot of times, you take that and then you upscale it to a global or national level, and that's why a lot of people just really can't seem to agree with each other, or why like blue versus red are at such odds right now. And those are people who don't really understand what that technology is capable of doing and how it can subliminally condition you to be against the other, I suppose. So
it's literally putting yourself
it's a tool
in a virtual echo chamber. And you know, and if anybody's experienced that, your friends are usually like-minded. So like you sit there and you talk to, say, you know, I don't know, say, you know, you're all Xbox people and you hang out with Xbox people. Xbox, great, you know, but then you have the other side, PlayStation or PC. You know, you're in your own echo chamber, and you don't ever venture out to understand why PlayStation's really good as well, or why PC's very good at it as well, because you have those wars over that too. You know, like, oh, screw PlayStation, screw PC, you piece of shit, because Xbox has like 2 teraflops better graphics better graphics, you know, than PlayStation does. PlayStation sucks, you piece of shit, you know, and then you get
I know what a
teraflop
is.
Yeah. You know, but you're literally in your own echo chamber, and if you're in an echo chamber and you're not, you know, experiencing or taking in other points of views, well, one, you're just going to stunt your own growth. You're never going to move on. You're never going to grow. You're never, you know, you're just going to stay in that chamber and, you know, really put yourself in other people's shoes. And unfortunately, social media is a great example of that. You know, it's a virtual echo chamber. What you want, like I said earlier, it's not about you, but it shows what you want and what it thinks you want, and it just continues to cycle that and show that over and over and over again, and you get sucked into it.
So does that answer your questions, Chris?
It does. And I mean, this is a really interesting topic. We could keep talking about this for hours, and I think I want to revisit the topic of I'm kind of thinking about it as we're going on right now, but the human condition intertwined with technology. It seems like the lines are being drawn closer and closer, and we don't even have commercialized cybernetics yet. But like, we're talking about phones, how you can't put them down, and social media, how you can't put them down. That forms your entire opinion. And then some AI algorithm out there is deciding what you're going to see every time you turn to your computer. That's really interesting. It's scary, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
So, Chris, actually, the specific phrase that you brought up, the human condition, I know on the last podcast I brought up Evangelion, and I recommend you watch Evangelion because it is a lot of the things that you're talking about with Ghost in the Shell. There are some aspects of that in there, and then also the human condition is a huge part of that show. And I know when I talked about it last time, I kind of made it seem like it was like a generic, like robot, like mech type of anime, which there is that aspect in there. But it is a very smart anime, sometimes to the point of where it's like just straight over your head, and it'll definitely take some YouTube look at, or looking up stuff on YouTube rather, kind of like with Tenet. A lot of biblical and like, I guess, like Christian and different theologies. There's a lot of imagery and I guess theological like thought that go and imagery that goes into this show as well.
Evangelical's the name of it?
Evangelion. Neon Genesis Evangelion.
Okay, I'm going to have to watch this because this sounds like a perfect, like if we wanted to talk about this for the next podcast, because this sounds like 100% up right up my alley.
Yeah.
And you know,
I've been
Chris
itching
knows my
to
thoughts,
talk about this show. Honestly, I would, if you guys could like binge this next week, and when you finish the show, you have to watch the movie as well, The End of Evangelion, and it's all on Netflix right now. So yeah, I would love to talk about some Evangelion with you guys.
Well, there you go, folks. Next week's episode, the recap of Evangelion.
Yeah, who are we as people, and do we believe less of ourselves than what we really are?
Well, that was pretty much all I had for questions for you guys. Hopefully we learned some things. Hopefully we came to some understandings about technology. It's all about barriers, right?
I'll agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree, of course. That's the internet in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah. Technology is a tool. The moral of the story is technology is a tool. It's important to understand how the tool works and what it's capable of. That's pretty much it.
If you use technology, you're a tool.
Yeah.
You're a tool.
Don't be a tool if you use technology.
Tool.
Boom. Done. There. Roll
Put that
credits.
on a shirt. Sell it.
All right, folks, that just about does it for the porch today. I think we've exhausted as much of this podcast as we can. For now, we'll likely revisit this topic because I think we're all pretty interested in it. As always, we do want to end with a recommendation. I do recommend you go check out the anime that I was talking about at the beginning of this episode, which is Ghost in the Shell, the standalone complex. Season 1 and Season 2 are both really good. Another one that is kind of on the same vein of that is going to be Psycho Pass. This is another anime. I think it's currently on Hulu, too. It talks about the future. It talks about technology, crimes being committed in the mind. It talks a lot about technology being intertwined with our minds and things like that. Very interesting anime that has a lot to do with crime and things like that. What makes you a criminal, what makes you good, what makes you bad, it's all inside your brain. They figure out how to quantify it, and it's pretty interesting. Go check that out, and you will have some fun. And until next week, we will see you then.
This has been the Pixelated Porch Podcast. We are the Friendly Nerds, Ricky, Chris, and Mike. If you'd like to follow us on social media, check us out on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. Just search Pixelated Porch, and also be sure to check out our Discord.
Or number 3, hold on, I had this written down. I'm going to cut this part out. What was number 3? Oh, shit. Oh, shit.
Oh, shit.
Oh, shit. What was number 3? It was